Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and this video is going to be talking about KetoRade, which is basically salt water, many other names for it, snake juice, salt, potassium, no salt, many other beverages you can do as an electrolyte supplement. But this video is just going to explain a bit behind KetoRade and what its purpose will be and how it can benefit your keto diet no matter what your goal is, whether it's lean gains, whether it's fat loss, therapeutic reasons, any of the sort. So many of you have probably heard of snake juice. This is salt and potassium basically in water. It's highly recommended for fasting protocols, but as far as doing a ketogenic diet, not many people are aware that fasting and ketosis are basically the same metabolic state. So at the same time, you are going to be losing some electrolytes. And although you don't need to supplement with electrolytes as intensely as you would on a long-term fast, ketosis still can be benefited with a little bit of electrolytes. So many people know carbohydrates retain water, about 3 grams per every carb. So when you cut out carbohydrates completely, as you would on a ketogenic diet, you will retain less water. Electrolytes will be helpful at you actually retaining some of that water again, but at the same time, they're important for many other functions in the body. And one other element that not many people know is that when you get into ketosis and your insulin levels are lower, your body will start flushing out some of its electrolytes. This is because basically the kidneys will excrete electrolytes when insulin is low. So when your insulin is high, your body will hang on to more electrolytes, which can be a good thing. But as far as somebody starting a keto diet, right, whether it's regardless of what their goal is, most commonly fat loss, your goal when you first start a keto diet should always be to get adapted. So don't adjust your calories in any way that doesn't feel comfortable. Just eat whatever food you feel you want to eat. Just keep it keto food for the first few days. And during this time, this is when KetoRade is typically the most beneficial. I'll get on to how to make it properly in a bit. But drinking some sort of salt and electrolyte hydration complex would be beneficial in the beginning, because if you don't have enough salt, your body will temporarily increase its own insulin levels. This is just so your body can hang on to more electrolytes. So this will really mess with your ketosis. And this oftentimes can contribute to keto flu symptoms, which honestly, 90% of the people I talk to who are afraid of keto flu end up saying, yeah, I was way more afraid of it than it actually was. I didn't feel anything. So typically that's the myth of keto flu. But as far as the actual substance to keto flu, it can come from increased insulin levels as part of your body's attempt to hang on to more electrolytes. So what increased insulin levels mean to you are kicking you out of ketosis, making you hungrier, making you more tired, and creating more of a volatile effect on your blood insulin. So as far as what your goal is, if it's fat loss, if it's lean gains, the beginning is always getting adapted. And KetoRade, right, your snake juice, whatever you want to call it, will be beneficial in that regard, because it will allow your body to reach a more sustainable level of insulin, which is ultimately the goal of ketogenic dieting, because eventually when you are in ketosis, your insulin is way more stable. So in the beginning, KetoRade is helpful, regardless of your goal. Down the line, it can be useful for hydrating during activity, but you don't want to overdo this, because your body does get better at retaining electrolytes as time goes on. It's simply a response in the beginning to be peeing more and excreting more electrolytes if your insulin is low and you had a drastic change. Maybe you had a lot of weight to lose, for example. Or maybe you were particularly addicted to sugar, so your blood insulin levels were spiking all the time. Either way, this is not something you need to go crazy on. A lot of people like to drink pounds of snake juice when they're fasting, right? And since KetoRade and snake juice are the same thing, you just need to take little sips here and there. Kind of like I just did with my coffee, okay? Just a little sip here and there, maybe less than a couple times a day. It's not very necessary unless you feel yourself particularly tired or particularly hungry. If you're doing longer fasts on keto in the beginning, a couple sips is not a problem. So how much is actually in that bottle that you're sipping? People often go for a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of potassium in like 2 liters of water. That's typically snake juice. Every time, I mean, there's no way to know exactly what the right amount of electrolytes everyone needs is. There's no way to know that. But what I found is helpful is take half that amount, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of potassium salt, which is no salt is what they call it, and basically put a little bit of that in water. If you don't even have potassium salt, I mean, it won't be as effective, but you'll still have good results from just regular pink Himalayan sea salt. So, or just sea salt in general. So, put that in water, put half a teaspoon of sea salt, half a teaspoon of potassium perhaps, and really you don't need to be drinking too much of this. You could even put less and just take a couple sips. You don't need to be pounding this back. Trust me, I've done it in the past where I've had more than I needed, and you really feel the exact same way from small amounts. And because you're eating food which may be more sodium dense, this will be beneficial. Now, a lot of people get afraid of blood pressure and sodium. Basically, most of the blood pressure problems come from high sugar foods rather than high sodium. That's just basically a myth, and maybe 1% of all hypertensive people, right, people with high blood pressure, get negative results from increasing their salt intake. So you don't generally need to be afraid of salt for high blood pressure or anything like that. And in the long run, your net blood pressure should decrease after losing weight, and of course with more controlled insulin levels. So as far as salt concerns you in KetoRade, it can be beneficial for performance. It can be beneficial for just how satiated you feel and how clear you feel, especially for somebody who, you feel a bit tired in the beginning of keto. Your body isn't adapted yet. This is the most optimal time to be sipping on these things. If you're doing longer fasts, look into doing this more. Look into taking little sips here and there. Not too many times a day. And definitely don't overdo it, because then you'll activate a salt flush, which basically makes you evacuate all of your bowels. And I mean, it's not a problem necessarily, but it'll just be annoying. So don't do that. Don't overdo the salt. Trust me on that one. Some people put in like little sweeteners in there to make it like Gatorade. The most important thing is just a little bit of salt. You can honestly put a lot of it on your food, and this video is very focused on the topic of salt rather than simply KetoRade or snake juice. So you can even put some more salt on your food if you're not getting enough. Don't be afraid of overdoing it unless you're drinking it all at one time, because that would create more of a salt flushing effect. Underdoing it, it would be worse most of the time, because we need electrolytes. But again, there's not like a huge detriment if you are on the lower end of what's optimal. It's more so if you're very depleted. So there's a lot of debate with salt in general. Don't overdo it, don't underdo it. That's all I can really say, because if you start getting these complicated electrolyte supplements with magnesium, potassium, calcium, they're going to deplete other electrolytes in your body. And you don't want to be depleting other electrolytes in your body, because when you take in too much of one certain electrolyte, it will deplete the others. So keep it simple, a little bit of sea salt, and if you find no salt, potassium salt, pick that up too, and literally, I'll even say a quarter of a teaspoon. Take a little sips here and there. Not a problem, okay? Very beneficial for those trying to get adapted. It's a very good hack to make it easier in the beginning, because, as I said before, it will prevent your body from spiking its own insulin levels so that it will retain onto electrolytes. And in the beginning, you're going to be wasting lots of electrolytes, so it's more beneficial then as a short-term tool rather than as a long-term necessity. If you want some keto coaching, go to my website, romanoketo.com. Also have a free meal plan in the description, sample meal plan if you want to get your feet in the water of keto. If you want full-blown personal coaching, that's on my website. Very soon I'll have programs as well for people who don't want full-blown coaching or just something generalized. So, thank you for watching this video. Leave me your questions about salt and other related topics. If you learned anything of value from this video that you're going to use, subscribe to me right now. Thank you, Anthony Romano. Peace.